everyone. Welcome to another KE Report webinar produced in conjunction with Focus Communications. I'm your host, Corey Fleck, also your host over at our website, kereport.com, and podcast, The KE Report, where we cover the market moves as well as a lot of resource companies, keeping you all up to date on developing stories in the resource sector. In this webinar, we are featuring Labrador Gold, traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol LAB, and on the OTCQX under the symbol NKOSF. I am joined by the President and CEO, Roger Moss. So Roger, thanks for joining us today. Roger's going to take us through a bit of an overview on this Kingsway gold project in Newfoundland and this ongoing 100,000 meter drill program that the company is a majority of the way through, as well as some recent news. There was news just out a couple days ago on a new discovery, a newly drilled area. So if you have any questions, Roger will be taking questions at the end of this webinar, but I will also interject some questions as you all send them in when they relate to the slide that Roger is talking about. Please use that chat feature or that Q&A feature within this webinar software. So Roger, please take us away. Thank you very much for your time. I'm going to hand the floor over to you.
Thanks very much, Corey. It's great to be back on another webinar. It's been a while, and it's something that we've been meaning to do for some time now, and I'm happy to be able to bring some of our listeners up to date in where we are right now and what we're looking forward to in the coming months, but also for any new people out there unfamiliar with the story so far. I've probably put a bit of an overview, as you said, in the first few slides so that everybody's on the same page before we get into the actual nitty-gritty of what we've been up to recently. So yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in. As I mentioned, it's great to be back to give you an update on what we've been doing at Kingsway, and I think it'll be good. I'm looking forward to having a discussion afterwards over what we've done and where we're going next. So as with all of these presentations, I will be making forward-looking statements. That's how it is for junior mining companies. We believe this information to be accurate as of right now, but of course, the nature of the business is that things may change in future. So please be aware of that. And just an overview where we came from, what we're doing, and where we're located. We're located on the island of Newfoundland, the easternmost province, together with Labrador of Canada. And the Flagship gold project, Kingsway, is in what has really been described as a new gold camp. Some of you will have been following us and perhaps Newfound Gold, our neighbor to the south, for the last few years, and we've had some exciting times, and things have cooled down a little bit now. But we're still very much in the game and drilling 24/7, and we continue to do that as of today. We really like Newfoundland and Labrador. We think it's politically stable jurisdiction, and it's very supportive of mineral exploration and mining. And I think that's been demonstrated by the government over the past 2 or 3 years, especially as they've embraced this new gold exploration boom in central Newfoundland, and we're very happy to be a part of that. Our team has a lot of experience. Our project manager was working with Noranda back in the 1990s when some of the occurrences in this district were first discovered, and so he has a long history with gold exploration in this area. Our other geologists, project geologists, very experienced, working all over the world with junior mining companies as well as more senior companies like Tech Exploration. And so we have a really good team on the ground in Newfoundland. I myself am an exploration geologist by trade, and I've been doing it for a long time, also in many different places in the world, including Namibia, where I was involved in the discovery of the Nalhab gold deposit when working with Anglo American over there. Nalhab started out as a 700,000 ounce gold deposit. By the time it was, as it went on and developed into a mine, and exploration, mine site exploration, enhanced that to over 6 million ounces. So incredible gold deposit right there. Obviously, shareholders are very important to us, and I thank any of you shareholders out there that are listening in today. And we do appreciate your vote of confidence and your interest in the company, and that's not taken for granted, that's for sure. As Corey mentioned, we are a majority of the way through our 100,000 meter planned drill program at Kingsway, and we still have about $14 million in the bank. So what we have left, which I believe today stands at around 26,000 meters, is more than fully funded by that cash in the bank. This is what the property situation looks like where we are, just east of Gander, about 18 kilometers west of Gander, sorry. Our licenses are shown here in blue. There are four of them. And as you can see, Newfound Gold is in the mustard yellow. Exploits Discovery, who you may also be familiar with, is in the mauve color around us. So this was really, when we picked up this ground in early 2020, March of 2020 to be exact, the main reason that I wanted this ground was because of the fact that it covered so much of the Appleton fault zone. And even in the early days, just after Newfound Gold had announced their discovery at Keats, which was an incredible hole, which they've surpassed, I'm sure, over the last 3 years. But that, together with the other occurrences on their Queensway property, showed me that the Appleton fault zone was where you wanted to be in this district, because it appeared to be controlling a lot of the occurrences of gold in this immediate area. So that's why we picked up the licenses we did when we did, and I'm happy to say that it's worked out pretty good so far. And again, for those of you unfamiliar with the story, we've been drilling since 2021. We started in April of 2021, so going on 2 years now of drilling at Kingsway. We started off with one drill rig. We currently have 3 on the property right now, and I'll go into that in a little bit more detail shortly. And what we did at Kingsway is we generated targets from scratch. When we acquired these licenses, there was only one real historical occurrence that was known. It was a small gold occurrence in Gabbro, very, very different from what we see along the Appleton fault at the other ones that we subsequently found. And so we developed these 6 targets over the course of pretty much maybe a year and a half, and then started drilling them systematically. And I'm happy to say that we found gold in every one of them except one, the CSAMT the target, which is quite a bit further north than what we see on this diagram here. And it was challenging because of the amount of overburden. So there was no rock outcrops, and we couldn't really see. We had to rely on geophysics to target the CSAMT, mineralization, which it turned out was not very significant. But the other 5 have worked out pretty well, and I think we can. I'm very happy with the team that we've had out there, and what they've been able to accomplish over those last 2 years or so.
Roger, as you've drilled some of these targets, have you noticed similarities between all of them, some of them, any of them?
Some of them, yeah. I can go back here, and actually that's a good point, because when we get into what we're doing, what we have done, I'm going to focus on the four occurrences that we see here along the Appleton Fault. So this red line represents the Appleton Fault on this diagram. Comes up from Queensway through Exploits, Bullseye area, and then up onto Kingsway. And so Golden Glove, Big Vein, Pristine, and Dropkick are very similar in terms of the nature of the gold mineralization and the host rocks. Those are all essentially quartz vein hosted gold that occur within altered, typically carbonate, sericite altered sediments. The Midway occurrence, which you can see, it's about 2 kilometers to the west of the Appleton Fault, and that is completely different. And it is a disseminated gold occurrence that's hosted in gabbro. And for those of you not geologists, the gabbro is an igneous rock that is emplaced from a magma as the magma cools in the Earth's crust. So it's very different from the sedimentary rock hosted quartz vein mineralization we see along the Appleton Fault Zone. And for that reason, I'm not going to be talking about Midway today. I'm going to be focused on the area along the Appleton Fault Zone.
Okay, thanks, Roger.
This is just another look at it. It doesn't really say too much more than the last one, other than it's a bit more colorful because we've got some magnetics in the background here. But just to say, when I mentioned that I was really intrigued by this Appleton Fault Zone initially and wanted to get these licenses for that reason. Right now we have the Appleton Fault Zone, as you can see, trends up to the northeast across the Kingsway property, goes off in some areas, but the area that's covered by Kingsway is about 12 kilometers of the Appleton Fault Zone. So we're pretty happy about that. You can see here on the western side of the property, the DBL, that's the Dog Bay line. It's another major structure that occurs in this part of Newfoundland, but we haven't done much work over there. It's possibly more associated with the gabbro-hosted occurrences like Midway, but it's not something that we've targeted to any significant degree to date. We focus mostly along the Appleton Fault Zone because that appears to be where the big prizes are. So now we're going to get into something, into more of where we're at and what we're doing. And this particular map looks like a bit of a spider's web. And it's some of the work that's ongoing in the background. Obviously, the news that we put out is almost always about our latest drill results. But there is a lot of work, obviously, that we do behind the scenes in order to produce those drill results and to generate more targets. And what we see in this is essentially a compilation of interpretation from airborne magnetic data. And the main things to note here are the purple line coming up through here, the Appleton Fault Zone. That's our interpretation from the airborne magnetic data. There's a splay off that coming down here towards the south, and then the splay is going up to the northwest. This fault over here is the Dog Bay line, and all of these other light colored or black faint lines, these are all interpreted structures from the airborne survey that we completed late last year. And this interpretation is ongoing. We know from both our work and from work of others in the area that structures are very important in terms of localizing the gold mineralization. And so as we move forward with looking at targets outside of the four occurrences that we've already found along the Appleton Fault, these structures are going to be very important, and we need to figure out which ones are going to be the most productive and to drill. So that's some of the work going on behind the scenes, and it's going to be important, as I'll point out later, in some of our targeting for the next hopefully the next discoveries. So for those of you familiar with the story, you've heard of Big Vein. This was where we started drilling in April of 2021. It's where we made our first discovery in the fall of 2020 with some boulders of quartz vein containing visible gold. And I think that one boulder, the initial discovery boulder, if you like, assayed over 1,000 grams a ton. So spectacular results and a beautiful looking specimen. And from there, we saw we knew the outcrop of Big Vein was there, and started sampling that. And the results that we got enabled us, or gave us the confidence to say, okay, we can propose a 10,000 meter drill program here, which we did, and started that in April of 2021. So, and we've been drilling there pretty much ever since. We've had some stops for Christmas break and break up where the snow and ice is melting and the roads become a horrendous mud bath, difficult to get to the drill rigs. But we have been drilling a long time there. You can see some of the drill holes on here, and what we're still understanding the structure. One thing that I should point out, especially to those of you who may not be familiar with the area, the structures are very complex in this area, and that's good and bad, because we know that structurally complex areas are good because they provide conduits through which these gold-bearing fluids can flow and flow through the crust and eventually end up being deposited in where we currently finding them. But of course, the problem with complex structure is understanding exactly how these structures where the gold is in relation to those structures. So how they actually control the siting of the gold mineralization. And that's something that we're still understanding here. But you can see here at Big Vein, we've got numerous zones. And I think one of the things that we have been looking at recently is the very spatial association of the gold mineralization with not the Appleton fault so much, although there is a zone here called Green Mantle that is just right in the footwall of the Appleton fault. But these splay faults that come off the Appleton fault, this one going up to the northeast and this one coming down to the southwest, you can see here these reddish gold and quartz vein zones are associated more with these splay faults than we see along the Appleton fault zone. So that's something that is obviously given us something to follow up, and we have been drilling out towards the northeast at Big Vein along this northern Black Shale fault, as well as down to the southwest along the Black Shale fault south. So we are following up these structures in both directions from Big Vein. I put this block in here because we're going to just focus in on that in a second here.
So Roger, I guess just in quick summary here, you have isolated a number of targets, which you have drilled, but it sounds like you're still in a way developing more targets with what you've learned from the drill results already.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, and anybody that's worked on projects like this know that the story is constantly evolving as you gather more information, and that's true in the case of the drilling that we do in one area that may be able to enable us to think about how to apply that in a separate area, but also developing targets. We're still doing the grassroots development that we started way back in 2020 in other areas that we haven't drilled yet. So I'll get into that in a little bit shortly. But this is a section. It's a leapfrog model that we have at Big Vein, and it's looking approximately northwest, and it just shows you some of those faults. This is where we believe the Appleton fault to be coming through here, and you can see that. Well, you probably can't see it very well because this is just some of the gold mineralization that we see on here without any of the rock types. But what we believe is that this Black Shale Fault and the Black Shale Fault South are displaced along the Appleton Fault Zone, with the south moving towards the right, or towards the bottom right of the slide, relative to the Black Shale Fault north. And so what that suggests is that our highest grades that we see at Big Vein are here at the HTC zone. And so if this has been displaced down here relative to the Black Shale Fault north, then this big question mark underneath here is, could this area be the extension of the high-grade HTC zone down in this area? It's something that we're looking at. We'll probably test that as well. And we can see here the beginning of a zone, the Green Mantle Zone, which we announced a couple of months ago. And there is certainly a lot of potential in this area for some high-grade mineralization. So this is more of what we're doing now, and this is a close-up of that box that I just showed you back here. So this red box at Big Vein, we're going to zoom into over here, and this is where our drilling is being concentrated right now. It's in the center of Big Vein. There are some zones that are open that we're tying off in this area. We're waiting for some permits to come in further to the northeast. So we're spending some time here tidying up some areas that we went into early on and left as we continue to move further north and south. So this is a bit of infill drilling that we have planned here over the next few weeks. One of the drills from Big Vein is going to be moving to a new area called Peter Easton in a couple of weeks, and we'll get into talking about that in a minute. But you can see here that this area in here is where we're targeting the drilling at Big Vein right now. So these white holes are ones that have just recently been drilled, and the yellow labels are where we will be drilling over the next few weeks.
How many meters have you drilled into this Big Vein area so far?
Oh, Corey, that's a good question. I don't know how many specifically in Big Vein.
It's been the focus, though, right? It's probably had the majority.
Yeah, so it would definitely be the majority of the drilling. But that's a good question.
How many more meters are planned there? How much more do you have allocated to this Big Vein area? So
the Big Vein proper is we won't have a lot more. And if I can pull up that question in a minute.
Yeah, no worries.
When we talk about the other areas that we plan to drill, basically we're going to continue stepping out, but we don't consider it Big Vein proper. We're stepping out into other areas. This is the most recent occurrence that we found. We announced about 2 months ago, Dropkick, and you can see here the drilling that we've done there. We've delineated a zone of mineralization and quartz veining over about 250 meters along another fault. The stratigraphy here, the rock types, are very similar to what we see at Big Vein. We have coarser sedimentary rocks, sandstones, and greywackies up here in the west, and then green shale further to the east. And our faults are obviously coming through here, and there's a significant fault coming up along here further to the east, and we're going to test that fault with this DK 23-6. That'll be done in the next week or so. we have probably 2 or 3 more holes to drill at Dropkick, and then we're going to pause and allow our assays to catch up with us, and the drill from Dropkick will move back to Pristine, which we drilled in the past, and we're gonna take another look at that, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. So this is going on more to the plan of exploration, and this is pretty much we've kind of started it. This exploration plan was sort of a 30,000 meter drill plan, and we've drilled 4,000 meters now, mostly at Big Vein and Dropkick, and so we got another 26,000 meters of the plan left to do, and this is just a simple cartoon diagram. Again, the Appleton Fault Zone coming up through here. Golden Glove is in the south, Big Vein, Pristine, and Dropkick. So that from Golden Glove to Dropkick is about 7.5 kilometers long, and you can see that we've got Pristine and Big Vein almost in the middle, and we're going to be doing some drilling in between those in an area we call the Gap. You can see here there's a nice area of gold anomalism, both in soil samples over 1 gram and rock samples up to 41 grams a ton. So that's obviously a target area that we're looking at, and Peter Easton is part of that. So that's going to be where one of the drills from Big Vein is going to be moving soon. So if we break it up, this is the bottom part, the area between Golden Glove and Big Vein, and this is the Appleton Fault Zone. So we've got a good section of the Appleton Fault Zone, almost 3 kilometers, 3.5 kilometers, the Appleton Fault Zone down through here, and you can see that what I have on the diagram here is gold in different sample types. We have rocks in the triangles, soils in the circles, and there may be some diamonds, if you can make them out on here, that are till samples, and you can see that between Big Vein and Golden Glove in the area between them, there's not a lot of these samples being taken. And the reason for that is not because we haven't been there, it's because that there's a lot of overburden. So again, it's an area that is a little bit more difficult to assess because of it's basically soil covered, no rock outcrop. We don't really understand or know what's going on there. And so that's where our geophysics comes in. And I mentioned that earlier, where we've completed an airborne geophysical survey, a MAG survey, and that's our interpretation is ongoing with that, and that will inform us where we target along that 3.5 kilometers, together with a ground survey of MAG and VLF, and that is ongoing right now, probably going to be completed by the end of the week, and so we'll have our results from that in a few weeks, and that'll enable us to target drilling in this corridor between Golden Glove and Big Vein, which I think is going to be an exciting target, because we know that just down to the south of us here, there's a lot of gold being discovered by Newfoundland, and I don't believe that that stops at the boundary, at the property boundary. So this is an obvious target that we need to get cracking on.
So Roger, there's actually a question about this area because of some of the new discoveries made by Newfound Gold just across the border. Has that changed your exploration strategy or the number of meters that you're going to allocate to this area?
We got a lot of meters allocated to this. We're planning about 80 drill holes in this area. We haven't submitted the application for a permit yet. We're waiting for our geophysical interpretation to be complete. But we do expect that to happen in the next couple of weeks. So has it changed our plan? I think it's changed the plan in that we are looking at this in a more expedited manner to get permitted and get drilling in this area, because I do think that it's obviously a good target given what's happening down south of us.
Yeah. Okay. Now, if you're planning on submitting the permit soon, what's the usual turnaround time on something like that?
Oh, it really varies. It can vary from 2 to 6 months. We have permits submitted for about a month, 6 weeks ago, for the area between Big Vein and Pristine that we don't have back yet. So yeah, I think it hasn't been bad, but obviously depends on the volume of applications that they get and how quickly they're able to process them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So yeah, the only other thing here to point out is a sort of enlargement of that area of gold anomalism together with Peter Easton. And I don't know if people are familiar with Peter Easton, but our property manager project manager came up with the name because apparently Peter Easton was a pirate, a Newfoundland pirate, whose buried treasure has never been found. So John was very optimistic that we're going to find it somewhere on Kingsway, and so maybe it's right there. So the next part of the story, really, in terms of where we're going, is between Big Vein and Dropkick, and we've obviously Pristine is in between Big Vein and Dropkick, and I've mentioned already that we're going to do some more drilling at Pristine, which I think is valid, because when we initially did our diamond drilling at Pristine, we were really looking for Big Vein type intersections, higher grades, and we got some lower grades, but longer intercepts for the most part, and very close to surface. And some of the interpretation of the mineralization that we found at Pristine was it looks like the mineralized zones are relatively flat lying and shallowly plunging. So we're going to go back in there and test that hypothesis and see if we can follow them out down towards the south towards Big Vein. And also in this area between Big Vein and Pristine, we have this is where we have our permits in, and where we'll be hopefully drilling in the not too distant future when we get those back. Other things to look at on this diagram are this boulder here of quartz that had visible gold in it and assayed about 168 grams a ton. That the source of that has never been found, and neither has the source of these 258 gold grains in till samples. Now you'll remember, perhaps some of you that have followed us for a few years, the Pristine story, and that occurrence was found by following up gold grains in till with drilling. This 268 grains of gold is the highest on the property, and so that is something that we're still looking to follow up. And this is up ice of the boulder, and so we're going to be trenching up ice of both that boulder, which is actually found in a trench, as well as up ice of these of this 258 grams or 258 gold grain in till. So those are some things that we're doing that isn't drilling related, but will certainly add to some of the news that we'll be having coming out over the next few months. What else to say about this? You can see that there's gold anomalism along the Appleton fault zone down through here. None of these areas between Pristine and Dropkick have been followed up significantly. So there's work to do there in terms of generating the next targets along that stretch between Pristine and Dropkick. This is a bit of a closer look between Pristine and Big Vein, and it's an area we call the Gap for obvious reasons. We've done a lot of drilling, as you pointed out, down here at Big Vein, and we've done a fair amount of drilling at Pristine, but nothing in between. We have been drilling earlier this year towards the northeast at Big Vein, which is really following this Black Shale Fault north towards the northeast and north, which is obviously up towards Pristine, and we'll continue doing that once we get the permits to fill in this gap. One of the other things that we plan to do is to follow the Appleton fault out towards the northeast. So that'll be drilled as well once we get the permits back for that. And as I say, we expect those in the next month or so, all being well. And we'll have about 40 holes planned for a first phase program in the Gap. Now, along with the along strike and along the Black Shale Fault targeting, we will also be targeting some of these structures that you see cross-cutting the stratigraphy to the northeast and east-west. We know that some of these structures are conducive to localizing gold mineralization. So as we step out here towards the north, up towards Pristine, we will of course be looking at those structures and targeting them specifically as we move our way along. This is just look at Pristine. If I just go back here for a sec, we're up in this area. We've drilled it over about 200 meters, and this is what it looks like in the section from our leapfrog model. We can see that it's open down towards the south in this area, about 250 meters long. This is about 100 meters deep, starting at close to surface. There's a little blob down here that we don't know what that is, but we'll be looking at that as well. But the main emphasis, as I mentioned, is to move this down towards the south and fill in the gap between Pristine and Big Vein. So that's the update. As I mentioned, we have about 26,000 meters drilling left of our planned program. We're fully funded for that, with still about 14 million cash in the bank. And those four areas that we're targeting drilling, the area between Golden Glove and Big Vein, the area between Big Vein and Pristine, the Gap, and the area at Peter Easton, and also some more drilling at Pristine itself. So we do have 3 rigs on site at the moment. 2 of them are at Big Vein, 1 is at Dropkick. As I mentioned, the one at Dropkick will move to Pristine. 1 of the rigs at Big Vein will move to Peter Easton. And once we get the permits for the Gap, which are the ones that we believe will be the first ones to come in, we will be looking at drilling the Pristine occurrence down towards Big Vein, and another rig working at Big Vein in the south up towards the north, following out that Black Shale Fault up towards Pristine. In addition to that, we're still generating new targets. We're going to trench that Pristine gold grain anomaly and where the quartz vein boulder was found that contained visible gold. And I think to date our targeting and our systematic way of exploring has allowed us to find gold in 5 of the 6 targets that we generated. And so I think that's a testament to both the ability and dedication of our people in the field, but also of the Appleton faults prospectivity in terms of localizing gold mineralization in this area. So with that, I'm happy to take questions.
Roger, let's get into these questions then, because there were a lot that came in. A lot of people said thank you very much and good presentation. So we do appreciate you putting this together. From a high level, we did have somebody come in more asking if you were planning on moving this into production or if this is purely exploration. I think you have driven home the fact that, look, this is still fairly early exploration. There was another question that also asked, do you see yourself putting together some sort of initial resource somewhere around the project, most likely around that big vein area?
Yeah, well, that's a question that I get fairly often. And I think my answer is always that, we have 7.5 kilometers of strike length of the Appleton Fault in the area that we've actually found those 4 occurrences, and then there's another 4.5 kilometers further to the north that we haven't really looked at in any detail yet. So I think that to try and focus on a resource, even at Big Vein, is premature. And I think taking note of some other companies that have not really been really gung-ho on developing resources early on in the exploration, I think it does kind of put a cap on what you're able to do. And when you're continuing to find gold all along this major fault zone, as we are doing, I think that the best way for us to go forward is to continue drilling that until we aren't finding any more, and then say, okay, like where do we start? Where do we try and put together a resource? Okay.
Yeah, you still have so many targets, right? You don't want to sell yourself short by focusing on one when maybe you hit something better at another area, I guess. Exactly. When is the completion date or estimated completion date for this drill program with the remaining 26,000 meters?
Well, that's difficult to answer because it's, as I mentioned, some of the permitting is out of our hands. But if all the permits came in next week and we continued drilling at the same rate, it would take us about 5 months. So it would be done by the end of the year.
Okay. So the end of the year, that works. Now, in terms of the HTC zone, somebody sent in a question that says they think you're onto something here with the potential extension of this HTC zone. Can you remind us when that will be tested, this extension, please?
Yeah, that is, I'm not sure whether it's being tested right now, but if it isn't, we will be testing it. And probably that one rig that stays at Big Vein after the second goes to Peter Easton, that would be the rig that would be testing it.
Okay, so soon then. It sounds like in the near term.
Well, relatively soon, yeah.
Yeah. That Peter Easton target, it's away from the Appleton fault zone. Do you consider this a negative, or potentially is that a positive because it is slightly different?
Yeah, it is slightly different, and to be honest, we haven't drilled that far away from the Appleton fault zone, so it is a bit of a kick in the dark. We do like the geochemistry that we see there. There's clearly structures that run through there that we're going to be targeting, and it has the right type of rocks, like the same kind of sedimentary rocks that we see at Big Vein. So it has all the ingredients. We know that there's gold there. and it's a test, and if it doesn't work, then we'll move on.
Okay. Now, this area between this 4-kilometer area between Big Vein down to Golden Glove, mentioned that you are planning on testing this. You still need some of those permits. How widely spaced are you planning on testing this? What do you think the attack strategy will be here?
That's a good question, and we haven't. I think in our initial planning and certainly what we put in our permits, we've got about 50-meter space centers along that 3.5 kilometers. Now we know from our experience at Big Vein and certainly from what Newfoundland has done down in the south, that's pretty aggressive in terms of step outs. But we do have the ability to drill more than one hole on each setup, obviously. So that is going to be potentially what we will be doing as we move out. But I think initially we're going to be stepping out fairly aggressively, which 50 meters is not aggressive in most gold camps, but in this one it's pretty aggressive.
Now, what about the depth of mineralization that you have seen so far? Can you just give us a little insight in terms of where you've seen a lot of this high grade at any of these targets? And then in terms of if you go deeper, some of the deeper holes that you have drilled, if grades have gotten better deeper, give us a bit of an understanding here of just where the mineralization is compared to surface.
Well, it's certainly not simple. I mentioned that the HTC zone is our highest grade zone, and that's true. The HTC zone starts at about 70 meters, I think, where we've had it in drilling, and goes down to about 200. So there is that. But one of our highest grade intervals, I think it was about 284 grams over half meter, was right at surface in the Big Vein zone. So it's not a simple, the deeper you go, the higher grade you get. And certainly some of our deeper drill holes have not found significant gold, but that is more because we were drilling those holes to intersect the Appleton fault zone rather than following, for example, the HTC zone down plunge. So I wouldn't discount that, but certainly we know that in these systems they do have the ability to get higher grade as they go deeper.
Okay. Now, in terms of the Appleton fault line, where you have been drilling, you and I have talked about this before, but a couple questions came in asking about the balance between drilling to the west of the fault and drilling to the east of the fault. What have you seen from your drilling, and where do you see future targets in terms of west and east of the fault coming?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's one that I ask myself almost daily. And obviously we've had success on the west side of the fault. We haven't drilled a lot on the east side, and probably the area that we've drilled the most on the east side is down at Golden Glove, where we had some, it was pretty disappointing results. We did find gold there, and so we got some good grades, like 6 grams over 4 meters, 10 grams over a meter, but it was nothing like we saw we see at Big Vein. So that was disappointing. Now we do have, as I mentioned, the Appleton fault zone running through Big Vein, and again, it's not something that we've done a lot of drilling at on the east side or below the Appleton fault. We have found the Green Mantle zone occurs on the east side or the footwall of the Appleton fault zone. So but you can't argue with what Newfound Gold have seen on the east side of the Appleton Fault Zone at Queensway. So it's there may be something to it. They've certainly found gold on the west side as well, as we see at Keats West. But I think that the real barn burning results that they've had have all been from the east side of the fault. So it's something that going forward, obviously that southern area between Golden Glove and Big Vein is a prime target for really testing the east side of the fault on Kingsway, and that's something that is top of our mind right now.
Okay. Now, when it comes to targeting, have you used any computer-generated targets or AI targets, such as what Goldspot has done over with Newfound Gold and some of their drilling?
No, we haven't. We haven't really done any AI at all. It's something that I'm not sure why we didn't get into it. I think initially we just didn't have the amount of data that we felt would be useful for targeting using AI. I think if you have a data-rich environment, then AI is pretty good, and perhaps it's something that we could do now. But again, I'm a little skeptical of AI target generation because I don't know, and maybe I'm just ignorant, but I don't remember reading of any discovery made by AI. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into it, and it's the same as our targeting with human intelligence. We know what we're doing in terms of why we're putting the targets where they are, and so we can see the definite outcome. But from AI, I'd be happy to have someone show me where they've drilled an AI target and hit the jackpot. That would really convince me.
Fair enough, Roger. I've interviewed a number of companies that have used some of this AI for targeting, and I too haven't seen any major discoveries, but hey, maybe we're wrong. If anybody has more information on that, please send it in or email me directly. Now, Roger, since we're talking about Newfound Gold, they're a shareholder of Lab Gold. Any technical information that is exchanged between the two, or any potential to do that, work almost as a team in this area?
No, I think it's from my point of view, I'm open to collaboration, and I've always been in my work in exploration very open to that kind of collaboration, especially once everybody's got their licenses tied up. I mean, there's no ground left around us, and Newfound Gold have their land, and nobody's going to take that away, and nobody's going to take away our licenses either. So I don't see any issue with it. I think that that's probably more of a question for Newfound. I think they would. I think from any kind of collaboration like that, we would benefit more, and I'm not sure that would be in their best interest. So no,
Okay.
The short answer is no. We're not collaborating technically. We do talk to each other, and we help each other out logistically when we can and when we need to. For example, they're doing their seismic survey, and part of it is being done on our southernmost license down by Golden Glove. And so, they asked us permission for that. We'll get that seismic information over that part of the property. So things like that, we work together on, but sharing information that's not in the public domain is not part of it.
Okay. Now, if anybody has more questions, send those in. I'll also be bringing Roger on my show to answer any more questions that come in. Just a couple more, I guess, broad questions, some more geologic questions here. Can you comment on the location of the source relative to the structures that are carrying the fluids, I guess, within some of the gold that you've already hit through drilling?
No.
No. Okay. Uh,
That's the short answer.
that's fair.
I'm not sure I understand. Are you talking about the source of the gold? The
I
source of the,
think that, yeah, I think they mean source of the gold. I just read that how it came in. So I
yeah.
assume the source of the gold, where it's coming from.
Well, it would be coming from an enriched mantle source somewhere, or deep in the Earth's crust. I mean, that's usually where these things originate from. So, but specifically, no, I couldn't hazard a guess at that.
Sure. Any other locations in the world where you've noticed where gold is disseminated in Gabbro?
Well, there's quite a lot in Newfoundland itself, and I'm not an expert on it, but there's certainly more in central Newfoundland where we're working. There are, I believe the gold one of the gold one of the gold occurrences over at Anaconda. And now Signal Gold, one of their occurrences over on the bay at the Bay Vert in Newfoundland, is also hosted in Gabbro. So there are certainly gabbroic and mafic intrusive hosted gold mineralization elsewhere in the world, but I'm not aware of any really world-class type deposits in Gabbro. And I could be completely wrong, but I'm just not aware of them.
Okay. Final question then, Roger, in terms of kind of the investing proposition here for the company. A lot of people look across your border to Newfound Gold, their market cap compared to Lab Gold. Obviously some different drill results and drivers there, but just wrap us up with what you think the value proposition here is for Lab Gold for investors looking in this area.
Well, I think that there are a few things, and obviously one of them is right here that I think we've shown over the past 2 or 3 years that we're able to generate targets, drill them, and find gold. Yes, I'm the first to admit that we haven't found the high grade gold mineralization over long intersections that Newfound Gold have. Why that is, I'm not sure, but it's not for lack of trying. And we have found the high grades and we found the long intersections. We just haven't put the two together yet. But one of the things that I think is, to my mind, and I've said this before in the presentation, that gold doesn't stop at the border, the property boundary, in my view. And so we have to, I believe that somewhere along that 12 kilometers of the Appleton fault zone that we have at Kingsway, we're going to hit something similar to what they have at Newfound. And I think, to my mind, our best chances of doing that are going to be in that 3.5 kilometers from the southern border, from Golden Glove to Big Vein. And that's for several reasons. One, because it's closer to the border and closer to where Newfound Gold have been working. But secondly, it exposes us more to the east side of the Appleton Fault. And, while I was a skeptic early on because we had our gold at Big Vein, which is very good. But they continue finding gold along the east side of the Appleton Fault, along structures, and we're learning from what they're doing. And I think when we get down to drill between Golden Glove and Big Vein, we're going to have a really good chance to come up with something similar.
Okay.
So yeah, there's that plus the remaining targets that we have. I think there's going to be a lot of drilling done. And one thing that I do want to impress on people is that we have 3 drill rigs and Newfound Gold have 14. So obviously we're not being able to drill as much ground as Newfound Gold are, but we are drilling 24/7 with those 3 drill rigs, and we'll continue to do that. So all of these targets that we have will be tested, and hopefully sometime in the next 5 months we'll get something that's more like what Newfound Gold has.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, still in this market, 26,000 meters of drilling still to come. That's a large drill program. We all have seen how much exploration companies have wound down some of their programs. But hey, Roger, thank you very much for taking us through this presentation. Thanks for taking time to answer these questions. Again, if any of you have any follow-up questions for Roger, please email me directly. It is fleck@kereport.com. I'll get Roger to answer those in future interviews. And I hope you all enjoyed this webinar and found it informational. We will be following along with this story. So again, thank you everybody for joining us. And Roger, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Corey, and thanks for everybody for tuning in and listening to the story.